Imagine a vast black and white sea stretching to the horizon. This is the taiga of southern Evenkia. It seems impossible to penetrate this impenetrable thicket, and this is close to the truth. After all, here, in the southeast of the immense Krasnoyarsk Krai, there is no infrastructure familiar to us, no roads for cars, no railways, no signs of urban or even rural life. For hundreds of kilometers around, the only bastion of civilization is Vanavara, a small village with a population of only a few thousand souls, whose pride is its own airfield. It was in these parts, a little over 100 years ago, 60 kilometers from Vanavara, that one of the most mysterious and inexplicable events of the 20th century occurred. An explosion of incredible power occurred over the poetically named Podkamennaya Tunguska River, which is commonly associated with the fall of the so-called Tunguska meteorite. To this day, this mysterious incident continues to excite the minds of both serious scientists and ordinary curious people. No one can say with complete certainty what exactly happened on that distant day. Disputes do not subside in Vanavara itself, the surroundings of which have become a real testing ground for various scientific research. Reaching Vanavara is not an easy task, requiring considerable patience from the traveler, significant time expenditures, and, importantly, additional plane tickets. The Ivankiysky district, of which Vanavara is a part of the Krasnoyarsk Krai and occupies an area of about 760,000 square kilometers. This is larger than the territory of any European state. At the same time, only 15,000 people live in this vast territory, which is less than the population of any European country, perhaps with the exception of tiny Vatican City. Approaching Vanavara, an attentive observer can notice curious signs of human activity, large rectangular bald spots among the endless taiga. An uninitiated person will surely wonder, what is this? Agricultural land in the middle of the wilderness, or, perhaps, miraculously preserved traces of the fall of the legendary meteorite? The answer awaits us below, on the ground, which is already very close. The first impressions of Vanavara are generally positive. No garbage, clean streets, on which, however, there are more all-terrain vehicles and snowmobiles than the usual passenger cars. Vanavara is a truly unique village. Here you will not find the usual Lenin Street, but you will find Meteorite Street, and in the very center of the village, instead of the expected bust of the leader of the world proletariat, there is a large red sphere with a memorable date, June 30th, 1908, the day of the mysterious explosion. Getting to the monument dedicated to this event turns out to be very difficult, almost as difficult as reaching the epicenter of the explosion itself. One gets the impression that this place is not particularly popular with local residents. Those very large, regular rectangles that are visible from the air are not fields, not agricultural lands, and, of course, not traces of some kind of cosmic impact. This is the result of deforestation, which has acquired a truly extraordinary scale in these places. Local residents say that this trade is mainly engaged in by entrepreneurs from the neighboring Irkutsk region, and some of them, according to rumors, do not strictly adhere to the established rules. According to old-timers, never before has so much timber been exported from these places as in our days. More recently, everything was different. There was an Evenki autonomous okrug with its own administration, its own laws and regulations. But after its abolition in the mid-2000s, this huge original territory became just a part of the Krasnoyarsk Krai. Vanavara is one of the 3 largest settlements in the Ivankiysky district. Once upon a time, there was a small camp on this site, which by the end of the 19th century had actually turned into a trading post, where both indigenous Evenks and visiting Russians lived and traded furs. It was such a trade and transshipment point that Vanavara met that very powerful explosion that thundered in the sky over Podkamennaya Tunguska on an early June morning in 1908. Its power was comparable to the power of a hydrogen bomb. Trees were felled over an area of several thousand square kilometers. However, what could be unequivocally called a meteorite was never found. But today, thanks to this mysterious event, the lands north of Vanavara remain practically untouched, since a reserve was created at the site of the alleged fall of the celestial body. There is an interesting hypothesis put forward by Italian scientists back in 1999 when they first visited these places. Scientists have suggested that Lake Checo is nothing more than a crater formed as a result of the fall of the Tunguska meteorite. The basis for this hypothesis was the results of bathymetric studies, which showed that the bottom of the lake has a conical shape. In order to refute the hypothesis of Italian scientists, they were taken to Lake Payongda. It is worth noting that the distance between these two lakes is quite significant. Payongda is a medium-sized lake located on the territory of the reserve. As it turned out, the bottom of this lake also has a conical shape. Lake Payongda is located quite far from the alleged epicenter of the explosion, but it is there that in recent years, researchers have found traces that may indicate the fall of a meteorite. Scientists believe that it is in this area that the search should continue. A few years ago, Lake Payongda became a real-world scientific sensation. Soil samples taken from the bottom of the lake showed the presence of such elements as germanium, iridium, chromium, and molybdenum, which had never been encountered in these parts before. At a depth of 16 centimeters, an absolutely white layer with a high concentration of rare earth metals was discovered, some of which are known to form only in zero gravity. This was a real discovery. This finding forced scientists to take a fresh look at events more than 100 years ago. Previous versions that the meteorite fell into Lake Checo, located near the epicenter of the explosion, or that it completely collapsed in the atmosphere, ceased to be so convincing. Some representatives of the indigenous population, the Evenks, said that the Tunguska meteorite split into two parts during its fall, one of which fell in the area of the Lukerski Ridge. It is noteworthy that all three lakes, Checo, Payongda, and one more, are located along this ridge, the highest point of which reaches 533 meters above sea level. Rare substances at the bottom of Lake Payongda were discovered quite by accident. At that time, researchers were looking for traces not of a meteorite, but of ancient fires, trying to unravel another mystery of the Evenk forests, the cause of frequent fires in remote taiga places. Scientists were particularly interested in the fact that the locations of these fires are far from logging sites and hunting trails. That is, the fires are unlikely to be anthropogenic. As a result of research, it turned out that in the past, from the late 16th to the 17th century, fires in the territory of eastern Siberia were even more widespread than at present. This is confirmed by the presence of embers in the bottom sediments of lakes. The data collected in this region clearly indicate that the climate of Siberia has been undergoing noticeable changes in recent years. The air temperature is steadily rising, and winters are becoming significantly milder. If a few decades ago, winter frosts of 50 to 55 degrees Celsius were commonplace here, now such temperatures, of course, occur, but do not last long, maybe a week, and are perceived as something exceptional. All this is undoubtedly a consequence of human activity. On the one hand, these are lumberjacks who tirelessly cut down the taiga. On the other hand, all of humanity as a whole, contributing to the formation of the greenhouse effect. Perhaps all of us, willy-nilly, are becoming the cause of seemingly natural fires in the Siberian taiga. However, in Vanavara, they do not like too simple explanations for complex phenomena. For the same reason, many local residents do not believe that the Tunguska meteorite was just a celestial body that accidentally ended its long cosmic journey near their village. Even specialists from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, with their most powerful supercomputers, have joined in solving the mystery of the Tunguska meteorite. At least, requests for information about events more than 100 years ago have already been received from the North American Space Agency. NASA was most interested in an unusual stone located on the territory of the Tunguska Reserve. This 10-ton quartzite block was discovered back in 1972 by a researcher named John Anfangenov. It is noteworthy that quartzites are not found in the taiga. Recently, the Americans asked the researcher's daughter to send them a sample of the stone. She complied with the request of NASA representatives and took samples. The analysis results showed that the composition of this 10-ton quartzite block is practically identical to soil samples delivered from Mars. However, in Vanavara itself, perhaps no one is eager for the speedy disclosure of the mystery of the Tunguska meteorite. After all, as long as there is a mystery, there will be those who seek to solve it, and the village itself will remain a center of attraction for the entire scientific and parascientific world. In addition, the taiga with its diverse inhabitants will be safe because the status of the reserve protects Vanavara from illegal loggers and poachers of all stripes. For a small Evenk village, this is perhaps the most important consequence of the fall of the Tunguska meteorite, which has become a kind of talisman for them, warding off all evil and attracting all the most interesting.